There are too many damn adverts everywhere, and you know that as well as me. So how on earth are you supposed to stand out? Right? This was me earlier, just before I prepared this video. I went on social media and I literally scrolled for 2 minutes. And these were the amounts of adverts that I saw on my feed within a 2 minute scroll. Okay, look at the sheer volume. Now, these adverts are good. There's nothing wrong with these adverts. But here's the thing, to have a proper coaching business, you need to have adverts. Adverts that you know when you put X amount of money in, you get X amount of money out. But how the hell are you supposed to do that when there's this much competition? Now, I've spent close to 6 figures on advertising for myself and for my clients. And the one thing that I've learned is that when there's this much competition and this much noise on social media, the only way for you to win with adverts is to make sure that you're extremely different. So today, what I'm going to be breaking down for you is how to create winning advertising campaigns, how to be completely different, and how to ensure that every advertising campaign that you set up is a winner. Right? Because like I say, without adverts, without knowing you can put X amount in and get X amount of clients out, you do not have a sustainable coaching business. You have a business that's still a fantasy rather than a predictable income stream. So let me just break down for you today exactly how to do that. Now, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Alexandros. For short, you can call me Alexi. And essentially, I run a marketing agency that takes the guesswork out of sales and marketing for coaches so that very simply they can focus on coaching. And like I mentioned earlier, at the time of recording this, I've spent close to 6 figures on advertising for myself and for my clients. And from that spend, I've been able to generate myself and my clients multi 6 figures in revenue. So today I'm going to share with you that knowledge. Now, before I get into this, make sure you stay to the end of this video, because at the end of the video, I'm going to be giving away a winning advertising framework that I have used and that my clients have used to generate all of this revenue. So now let's get straight into this, right? And let's just break this down for you, because like I say, if you can't differentiate, you're going to be in trouble. So the first concept that we really need to understand when we're looking at running adverts, being different and having successful advertising campaigns to bring us our clients is habituation. Now, a lot of you probably won't know what that means, so let me break it down for you. But if you don't understand this concept, you're in trouble, okay? So habituation, as we can see, we want to know the psychological definition of it, right? Because marketing sales is mainly psychology. Now, the psychological definition is the diminishing of an innate response to frequently repeated stimulus. Now, okay, that probably doesn't make sense to a lot of you, so let me just break this down in simple terms. Now, imagine this is your bedroom, okay? As you walk through this bedroom every single day, certain items do not move, right? The bed frame stays in the same place, the wardrobe stays there, the lampshade probably do, the set of drawers stays there as well. So what happens is that every single day that you walk through this room, you see the same items. And because you see the same items so much on repeat, your brain becomes habituated to it. It gets used to it, essentially. And because it gets used to it, it doesn't consciously need to process the fact that it's there. And this is the exact same thing that happens with adverts. And this is where 99% of people go wrong, right? 99% of people just set up an advertising campaign and just run it and see what happens. No one really takes time to research what the competition's doing, what other people are saying, what other people are offering. And because of that, what starts to happen is that your adverts get caught in this habituation cycle. So your adverts just get scrolled past, your adverts just get ignored because you're offering the same things, you're saying the same things, you're looking the same, you're sounding the same. So your consumer becomes habituated to your adverts. So what's really, really important, and what I'm mainly going to be breaking down for you today, is how to make sure you don't end up becoming habituated, right? Making sure that your ads can pattern interrupt your customers, can bring your ad to the conscious mind, and can be successful essentially. Because look, at the end of the day, if you're going to get lost in the noise, if you're just going to get stuck in this habituation trap, there's no point in running ads. So I'm going to show you how to avoid this so that you can succeed essentially. So like I say, this is going to be so important for you to learn because it's actually going to show you how to stand out. Like I showed you at the start, look how many ads within a 2 minute scroll. And what's the interesting thing is as well, is like when I was going through these, you can see a lot of the keywords: prospects, leads, calls, funnels. These are all repetition words, and a lot of these adverts will, sure, some of them will work, some of them will probably do well. I don't know how well those campaigns are doing, but a lot of them will also end up in the habituation cycle where they just get lost in the noise. So like I say, I'm going to show you how to actually stand out so you only ever make winning ads. Now, I've broke this down into 2 categories, how I'm going to show you how to do this. A category more focused on hyper competitive niches, how to really stand out there, and then also a category breaking down how to write adverts for less competitive niches. Now, what I would say, no matter which type of niche you feel like you fit into, the advice that I'm going to share on both sides of this spectrum is just as important for everybody to understand. So don't jump to this part because you think that you're in a less competitive niche, because the hyper competitive niche stuff will also help you as well. Okay, so make sure to watch this through to the end. But let's start with the hyper competitive niches. Now, obviously, the hyper competitive niches are, of course, going to be harder to break through. And the very simple reason for that, well, there's more people running ads in there's more people trying to get your customers. So it's harder for you to stand out, and it's easier for you to end up in this habituation where you just get lost in the client's mind and your ad never gets clicked on. Okay, so everything you do when you're in a hyper competitive niche needs to be significantly different due to habituation, like I said earlier. So that includes the style of the ad, in terms of, are you doing a Facebook lead form? Are you sending them to a landing page? How is that looking? The actual visual of it. So are you sitting down behind the desk? Are you walking and talking? Are you doing something a bit more abstract, like being in a swimming pool, some stuff like that? The terms that you use, so the keywords, the buzzwords. So a lot of people, for example, that are claiming to help coaches will use words like scale, they use words like 10K a month and things like that. These are words which put you into that bubble of habituation and get you lost. And then lastly, sort of like your offer and things like that. So for example, what are you promising? What are you actually offering to the market? Okay, and these are all the typical layers of things that end up with you becoming habituated and getting lost in the noise. Okay, so this is really, really important stuff. And to give you an example, I myself am in a hyper competitive niche. You probably know just as well as me, how many bloody people have you seen trying to target coaches, right? It's an insane amount. And the only reason that my advertising campaigns have worked so well and I haven't got lost in the noise is because of this. So let's get into it. So essentially what you need to do is a competitor analysis, because this is really the only way that you can avoid getting stuck with all this stuff. So let me show you how to do this. And this is something that I do directly with my one-to-one clients who are coaches. So really take this in, because this is powerful stuff. So what you need to do essentially is create a list of 10 of your competitors and find out these things, right? So what is their offer to the market? So what are they saying? So usually the offer to the market is, I help X person achieve Y outcome and overcome Z problem. So what are they promising to solve for the market? Look at that. Secondly, what is their unique mechanism? Now, if they're any good at marketing and if you're in a hyper competitive niche, your competitors will likely have a unique mechanism. So you need to find out, what is their unique mechanism? What are they calling it? What are they saying is different about them, right? Look at keywords they use across their page. Again, like myself, when I was doing this exercise for my business, I was finding keywords like the word scale was being used a lot. 10K a month was being used a lot. Funnels was being used a lot. These are all keywords that I was seeing will come up repetitively no matter who the person was. Okay, what do they position themselves as? So for example, are they calling themselves a coach? Are they calling themselves a mentor? Have they got an agency? How are they positioning themselves in terms of who they are, if that makes sense? What can you do differently to them? So you should do an individual breakdown. So have a look at what they're doing and just try and have a quick brainstorm of what you can do differently. Have a look at their adverts as well, right? So have a look at these elements of their adverts and break them down. What are they doing? What are they offering? What are they talking about? Things like that. And any other notes, right? You need to do this breakdown for 10 competitors at least. Now, it might seem time consuming, and it might seem a bit boring, but like I say, if you'd rather spend money and just flush it down the toilet, then ignore this. But if you're actually serious about getting clients and growing and getting real ads out there, then this is what you need to do, okay? So this is step one. Now, the step two is an overall analysis, right? So once you've done this for 10 people, you're going to have a pretty good look at the market and who they are. What you then need to do is take all of the most common, for example, keywords and write them down here, and you want to avoid those keywords. That's going to be your first step of not getting trapped in this habituation cycle. Okay. Second thing, look at the overall similarities of all of these coaches. What are things that you've picked up across every single other coach that you've looked at in this space and thought, actually, I can do that differently, or that's the same for everyone, I'm going to avoid that. Then do the same with their adverts. So have a look at the style of ad, look at the language they're using, look at the promises they're making, note down all the similarities. And by doing this exercise, again, it's going to show you what you can do to be different. Okay. And then lastly, just overall do your top level sort of breakdown of the main differentiators that you can have. And in and of itself, this is like a blue ocean strategy, right? a lot of you have probably read the book where it talks about how to be completely different and how to create your own market. This is a big step into doing that. Now, obviously, what I'm sharing with you here in these differentiators, I'd recommend that you do it further and beyond just your advert. I'd recommend that you encompass this in your content, in your emails, in anything that you're doing online, okay? Because it needs to be congruent, it needs to flow so that people can see you're genuinely positioning yourself in this way and this is genuinely who you are. But this is, honestly, this is such an important exercise because if you don't do this, like I say, you're just going to throw money down the drain. Now, the main reason that we're doing this is so that we can throw rocks. Now, this is a really simple and really important marketing term that's so key to understand, okay? So when you're in hyper-competitive niches, like I say, there's going to be a lot of people offering a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of people that your target customers don't like. There's going to be a lot of keywords and buzzwords that your target customers don't like. So throwing rocks is essentially speaking out against things that your target customer doesn't like. So let me give you a prime example of this. With the type of coaches that I generally work with, they don't like and they get fed up with people that promise them 10K a month or people that promise them 50 appointments in the next week. They hate these big fake promises. So what I can do within that and how I throw rocks is I speak out against these people. So I could do an advert saying something like, coaches, if you're fed up of being promised 10K a month within 7 days of working with someone, then I understand your pain. And by me doing that, what that does straight away is it breaks the habituation, it breaks that repetitive cycle, and straight away my target avatar is going to go, hang on a second, this is completely different to everything else that I've heard. Everyone else is promising me 10K a month, this guy isn't, let me hear him out, right? And the reason that we're doing this is just to cause that pattern interrupt, to break up their thought process, and to just give us a chance really to actually get their attention and get them to click on our advert. It's literally as simple as that. So essentially, once you've done your analysis and you've seen the key things that are similar with everyone else, you essentially just speak out against them. And by doing that, by throwing out rocks at that specific thing, you're just going to stand out like a sore thumb. And that's exactly what we want because, like I say, habituation, you don't want to end up in that cycle because you're going to get lost in the noise, your advert's going to go nowhere, you're not going to get any clients. This is really, really important. So that's what I recommend for hyper-competitive niches. That's what I've been doing for the entirety of 2025. And yeah, it's been working with me for me so well. So again, just to give you an example of when it didn't work so well for me, I spent just shy of £1,000 on an advertising campaign, didn't book a single call, didn't sign a single client, barely got many leads. The reason that that happened was because I ran an advert which was exactly the same as all of the people targeting my target audience as well. Okay, and what I mean by that is it was the same style in terms of I was having the same call to action as all the other people, which again was habituation, and everyone, all the comments on my ad were, I've seen this ad 10 times today. And that alone was enough for people to switch off because I ended up in that habituation cycle. I was asking them to take a certain action, I was using the same buzzwords and keywords, and that messed me up. What I did this year, which has allowed me to really sort of grow this a lot more, is like I say, stopped using the buzzwords, had a different call to action, have a different setup, and it worked a treat, okay? So this exercise is extremely important because you can throw the rocks, you can break the pattern of that target customer, you can sound completely different, and you can succeed with your ads, right? Now, this is where we now lead on to the next part. And like I said, this is going to be useful for everyone. Whether you're in a hyper-competitive niche or not, this is going to be really useful for you. So now let's look at the next part, which is looking into a less competitive niches. Now, less competitive niches, if you're in one of these, you're in a very, very good place because you don't need to go into as much intimate detail as that. But if you're in a less competitive niche and you do the competitor analysis, you will honestly be flying. But let me show you the core fundamental basics of less competitive niches. And again, like I say, if you're in a hyper competitive niche, a lot of these tips that I'm about to share here will also help you. So the first thing is you have to intimately understand your ICP, which is your ideal client profile. Now, the thing is, a lot of people and a lot of coaches trying to run ads don't really take time to truly break down their client avatar and truly understand exactly who they are. And because of that, straight away, what starts to happen is your advert's not speaking directly to someone. Now, when it comes to your ideal client profile, this is how you want to define that person. I help X person achieve Y outcome and overcome Z problem. Now, if you can't define your client avatar in this way, in a simple way, you shouldn't be running ads. It's as simple as that. It's literally as simple as that. Now, the rule that I have for this is the 1-1-1 rule. In your marketing, your front-end marketing, you should be targeting one person helping them achieve one overarching outcome and helping them overcome one overarching problem. Now, if you can keep your messaging really simple, targeted at one person, helping them achieve one outcome and overcoming one problem on the front end anyway, your advert is going to go so much further. Now, the biggest problem that I see coaches making is not understanding the top level of what their target customer wants. So what they do is they speak on loads of different things around the target client, but a lot of the time they don't talk about what that target avatar wants. They just talk about the avatar in general. So let me explain what I mean by that. So for example, for myself, I'm obviously helping coaches. The overarching thing that I'm helping coaches with is getting clients, right? At the end of the day, that's the top level thing. But that isn't the only problem that I solve. I also help coaches define their niche. I help them create adverts. I help them create content. I help them to build out an advertising campaign. I help them with a conversion system as well to convert the leads into calls. But how am I supposed to put all of that into my messaging? I need to speak to the top level thing, which is obviously getting clients. And this is the exact same thing that you need to do when you're trying to target your customer with adverts, is only ever target the top level thing, be clear, be specific, be tangible, and make it simple, right? And if you're having any troubles, because I don't want to go too much into client avatar now, but if you're having any troubles with your client avatar, my Instagram's in the description. Feel free to drop me a message. I can send you something over that will help you out with that. So that's the first part of less competitive niches. It's literally just understanding who you're talking to in a very clear, direct way. That's literally 90% of the heavy lifting done for less competitive niches, because you don't need to do as much research, okay? So that's that. Now, like I say, this will then allow you to build a clear, direct offer. So this will allow you to be really clear on exactly what to offer the person within the advert. Because you'll know, if you understand them and know them intimately, you're going to know what they want. And it's simple as that. Your advert becomes pretty simple. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now, the next step is to make it extremely simple and write like a child. Now, I think there's a common misconception with a lot of people when they write adverts that they need to make it fancy, they need to make it complex. And that's completely wrong. The best adverts are the simplest and clearest to understand. Now, again, let me just explain something to you. At the top, I showed you all of those adverts. If your advert is going to be confusing, it's going to be hard to digest, it's going to be hard to understand, people will just swipe past it, because there are so many other ads that will turn up that they can then watch, indulge, and take part in, which will get them the same thing that you're promising. So don't give people a reason to click off. Don't give people a reason to swipe past. Okay, just make it so simple. You want to make it as easy and as frictionless as you possibly can for somebody to watch the ad and click on the ad. So if you're using complex jargon, you're not speaking in a clear, concise way, or you're speaking in a roundabout way, people are just going to click off because they're not interested. Why would they need to be? There's another ad coming 3 posts later. Okay, so it's really important that you make it so simple, and you write it in a way that a child can understand it. That's how simple you need to be. Doesn't matter who your target avatar is. I don't care if you're targeting CEOs. It needs to be so simple that a child can understand it. Don't make people think or have to take time to process what you're talking about. Literally as simple as that. Now, the best way I found to do that is something called Hemingway app. So it's just hemingwayapp.com. But what this does is you put your script in and it shows you the readability age of your advert. It shows you the complexity of it, and it shows you what to change, right? So for example, here, this sentence hard to read, so it'll get me to change it essentially. And realistically, you want your grade of reading to be as low as humanly possible. So grade 4, 5, 6 is whereabouts you want it to be, and that's as simple as you want. And use this to sort of judge the complexity of your adverts. Simpler, the better. Trust me, like I said, I've spent close to 6 figures on adverts. The adverts which are hard to understand, the adverts where you have to watch them and try and think and process what they're about, they do the worst. The best adverts are when people hear them, they go, yep, that's for me, that's me, that makes sense, that's clear and simple, let me click on it. It's literally as simple as that. So use this tool, hemingwayapp.com. If you type in Hemingway editor, it'll probably come up as well, and it's free. Okay, it's free, you don't need the paid version. Okay, so that's that. Now, the next step to understand about your adverts for less competitive niches, but also, again, this is very important for hyper competitive niches, is that you are only ever selling the click. Now, you may have heard of this before, but for some reason, people don't really take time to take this in. The purpose of your advert is to get people to the next step. Okay, a big misconception I see coaches making is that they try to sell their services in the advert. But think of the customer journey in the life cycle, right? Let me get a pen to draw this out. So think of it this way. So you have the ad, right? And some people try to say in the ad, come and buy my coaching, essentially. But what people forget is that this isn't the life cycle of a customer, right? So what actually happens is you run an ad, they click, once they see it, they go to, I don't know, they go to it, some sort of landing page, then they opt in, right? Then they let's say they watch or they indulge in whatever you're offering, so they indulge in the offer. Yeah, once they've indulged in the offer, then they might book a call. And then once they've booked a call, they need to join the call, and then you get the sale. Right? So excuse the dodgy handwriting, but so what I'm trying to show you here is that look how many steps are in between the advert and buying. Right? All of this is in between. But some people go in the ad and go, oh, this is what I do, come and buy my packages. That's just not going to work. So what you need to be doing is selling the click. Right? So the advert is to get them to click. It's just literally that's it. You're trying to make it as convincing as humanly possible to get them to click on the ad. Once they click on the ad, the landing page is to make it as convincing as humanly possible to get them to opt in. Once they've opted in, the thing that you've offered is going to be as convincing as possible to get them to book a call. And the call that they book with you is then designed to be as convincing as humanly possible to get them to buy your thing. It's literally as simple as that, right? So you're only ever selling the click. So in your adverts, you don't talk about you don't talk about what you do, you don't talk about how great your coaching is, what packages you offer, how you help clients. All you talk about is you speak directly to that client avatar and you offer them something that they're going to want, and you tell them that if they want it, they have to click on the ad and to go to the next step. It's literally simple as that. Doesn't matter what type of ads you're running. If you're running to get email addresses, if you're running to optimize for followers, if you're running to optimize for messages, it's the same thing. You're making your advert as convincing as humanly possible to get them to click. Okay, so in your actual ad, never talk about buying, never talk about yourself, never talk about your packages or how good they are or how you serve clients. You're literally just selling the click. And if you do that, you're going to have an amazing advertising campaign, especially for less competitive niches. It's very hard to go wrong if you follow these steps. And you'll see the results of that when you see how low your cost per call is. I mean, like, I remember I worked with a mindset coach last year. He wasn't in a very competitive niche. It wasn't a well-targeted niche. But there was demand there, but for some reason it wasn't a busy space of advertising and marketing. So we set up his campaign, and within 3 days he'd booked 8 sales calls. He was booking sales calls for £13 a piece. So he was spending £13 to get a call for the opportunity to sell something to somebody for £1,500. Craziest ad campaign I've ever seen. And all he did was follow the flow that I've shown you here. Again, another example, I worked with a career coach last year. Similar thing, not a very competitive niche, not very well targeted, not very great advertising or marketing campaign set up for that audience. But once we set hers up, she was getting about £30 per call. So every £30 she spent, she was getting an opportunity to sell something for £3,000. Absolutely crazy, right? And literally just following this. Now, if you're in a more competitive niche, again, you can achieve that. You just need to follow these steps. And again, even if you're in a less competitive niche, like I say, I do recommend that you actually take time to do this anyway, because if there's low competition and you do this, you will be flying. Okay, so that's that. Now, obviously, like I said, I promised you an advertising framework. I'm just going to give you a very simple breakdown and a framework of how to structure an advert, right? Because a lot of you here are going to be in completely different niches. Some of you may not even be coaches. You may just be curious to see what I was talking about here. But this framework applies to everyone, right? This is how it goes. So hook, say something that's going to capture their attention, that's going to pattern interrupt them, and it's going to break that habituation cycle. So like I said earlier about throwing rocks, this is where you could apply this principle to really help you to thrive, okay? So for example, like for me, I throw rocks, I've done my competitor analysis, I talk against people who are promising 10K a month, or I talk about against people who use the word scale. So for example, like I said earlier, I could say, if you're a coach fed up of being promised 10K a month, straight away, that's gonna resonate with them, that's gonna click with them, because that's what they don't like, because I've done my analysis, okay? So keep that in mind. Then you just list some pain points. So you're doing this to show people that you understand them and where they're at. So for example, you could say, you're experiencing XYZ, you've tried this thing before, and you're still in the same position and you're wondering why. It's pretty simple. It's nothing too hard. Just list the pain points. Then you give your first clear call to action and you show that you have the solution to this specific problem. You say, if that sounds like you, I've developed XYZ freebie or XYZ framework or whatever it may be to show you exactly how to achieve their desired goal. And this is why, going back to this, it's important that you define this one clear overarching outcome that they want. Okay? And again, it doesn't really matter what type of ads there's a particular type of ad that I'm the favorite of and I love the most, but again, I'm just showing you that this can apply for everything. Then share some social proof, because again, look, anybody can come online and spend some money and run an ad and say they've achieved those things. Back it up with evidence, right? If you can share interviews, if you can share screenshots of reviews, whatever you can is amazing. And then lastly, restate the call to action one more time and make it very clear to them the benefit of clicking. Simple as that. And just link that to the outcome that they want. It's pretty straightforward, right? There's nothing too overly complex about this, but once you do it properly, like I say, your advertising campaigns will be absolutely flying, right? And this is, if you follow everything that I've shared with you here, this is all you're going to ever need to succeed with your adverts. Doesn't matter how many ads are out there, doesn't matter how much competition there is, you will win with this alone. Okay, and this is what I've done for myself. Like I said, at the moment, I'm spending about £100 a day, which is about £3,000 a month on adverts. And each month I get at least a 3 to 5x return from those advertising campaigns in a hyper competitive niche. And I'm going to continue increasing that ad spend as well. So nothing's impossible. It's just about knowing how to do it and having a correct framework and process to do so. And like I said, this is the exact framework I've used. This is the exact framework I use for my clients. So like I said, steal it, use it to your advantage, and you'll be flying with your advertising campaigns. It's as simple as that. Now, if you want to learn anything else about me, who I am, what I do, how I can help, all of that stuff's in the description. There's links and stuff you can look to research me. My Instagram's there. There's a page there where you can book a chat with me if you'd like to, but like I say, no pressure at all. Options there if you want to explore further. And then apart from that, if you found this useful, if it gave you some knowledge and some insight, subscribe to the channel, right? I'm posting every single Tuesday a video like this, giving you advice on how to market yourself and advice on digital marketing in general for coaches and their businesses. So yeah, if you found that video useful, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next Tuesday on the next one. Cheers.